What's up, gamers, and welcome to another initial thoughts video on the newly released Path of Exile 2. Well, it's not even fully released, it's just in early access, but I've been playing it this weekend, and as a longtime Diablo game fan, I've spent countless hours in those games slaying demons, hoarding all that loot, and obsessing over my builds. But after diving into Path of Exile 2 for just about 8 hours this weekend in early access, I have to admit, it's not just better, it's on another level. This isn't a shot at the Diablo games because I still really like Diablo 2, Diablo 2 Resurrected in particular, but this is more of a realization that this is the game that we wanted out of Diablo 4, and I think Grinding Gear Games is doing this on purpose. And from that perspective, I'm going to talk to you guys about why I think that, so let's dive in. All right, so from the second you hit the load in button, Path of Exile 2 grabs you. The startup screen alone, where you see your character, oozes atmosphere. It's dark, it's gritty and foreboding in a way that reminds me of what I really wanted from Diablo 4, and I didn't really get. You're going to hear me say that a lot. So the settings menu as well, it's a dream. Customization options are for graphics, controls, and accessibility settings are super deep, and you basically have everything that you want to see in a game like this. You can truly tailor your experience, whether you're on a beastly rig or something more modest, or even something in between like me. I'm recording on my laptop setup right now. It's pretty good. It's got a mobile 4080 in it, but it's not as good as my home recording setup for sure. But either way, they basically give you everything you'd ever need to make sure that you get the FPS that you want out of an action game like this. Okay, next we're going to talk about the gameplay and the world. So the first little starting town that you get into is pretty familiar to you, especially if you've played Diablo games forever like I have. There's traders, there's a way to fill your mana and your health meters. You can trade, you can sell things, buy things, you can upgrade your stuff. There's even a guy in town called the Hooded something, and he looks an awful lot like a character from the Diablo games we know called Deckard Cain. It basically serves the same purpose as well. He literally identifies your items for free for you too. So again, here's another thing I think Grinding Gear Games, little shot they threw at Diablo, which is pretty funny. And you also have to do a quest to save this guy and bring him back to the town as well. You don't get him initially. Exactly like Diablo. It's really funny. The Hooded one, that's what he's called. But yeah, anyway, so this town is is very familiar. It looks great. Right now in early access, there is a little bit of a bug where you get pretty low FPS inside this town, but nonetheless, it still looks really, really nice and should be very familiar to all of you. Now, talking more about stepping foot into the world, now the first thing I noticed when I actually took a portal and got into the world is how real the world feels. So in Diablo, zones can sometimes feel like corridors. You're just sprinting through as quickly as you possibly can to get to the next area. Here in this game, every area is dense and alive, like you're fighting your way through some kind of hostile ecosystem. So the traversal isn't just about getting from point A to point B, like I said in Diablo games. There are moments of exploration, there's hidden areas, and ambushes by, monsters that are genuinely made to make you stop and appreciate the attention to detail. It's slower paced than Diablo sometimes, but instead of feeling sluggish, it feels intentional, like the game is daring you to take it seriously, try to get to that next area, and see if you can actually put together the correct combos to beat the monsters in that area. And now that we're talking about monsters, let's talk about the combat in PoE 2. This is where I was completely sold once I got into it. So Diablo has always been good about, mowing down hordes of enemies and having fun with that, but Path of Exile 2, every fight feels personal. Enemies are smarter, faster, and they hit extremely hard, even just random mobs that you're going to have to pass through to get to the next area. Positioning matters a ton. You have to dodge the crap out of everything because there's always something slinging something at you, and spamming one ability is not going to cut it here. It's brutal, but rewarding. I see all the time in the chat, while I'm playing, that people are complaining already this weekend about how hard the game is. I think it's a positive. We're going to talk a little more about that in the video too, but when I finally cleared a particularly nasty pack of enemies, I didn't feel like I got lucky from it. I feel like I actually earned it by putting together the right skills and actually was able to beat those guys with those skills. So this combat is what keeps you engaged and on the edge of your seat while you're playing a game like this. And I'm not really sure I could ever go back to mindless slashing and hitting of like Diablo 4 games and stuff like that after this, because this feels way better. You actually have to put some thought into every single encounter, and you can't just run around because you will die if you try to do that. We'll get back to the game's difficulty in just a minute, but let's talk about like the number one reason why we play games like this, and that is the loot and items. So loot in games like this has always been the dopamine rush, but in Path of Exile 2, it takes it a step further. So you're going to get the thrill of seeing all those rare items drop, and not like in Diablo 4 where they're just handed to you. I finally, after I think like 7 hours of playing, found I think it's what they call it, a legendary item in this game. And it was amazing because up to this point, I only found blue and yellow items, and I finally found a orange item, and it's like I really earned it by beating that mob. And also the real joy in this game is the potential of every item, because there are different upgrades in this game that you find in the world just by playing, that you can upgrade just regular normal items, magic items, and even rare items to give you different stats, different affixes. You can socket things. You can do all of that to make your items work exactly the way you want them to. So it gives every single piece of gear you see in this game some kind of potential, which is amazing. I really like the way that Path of Exile is doing this, just like the first game, but even a little bit further in this one. I think it definitely gives the loot a lot more potential and a lot more a better feeling. Even just trash loot that you see around the floor can still be useful to you in some way. So it's basically like gear is not just going to get handed to you in this game. You have to actually use a bit of thought and tailor it towards your character, which is pretty cool. All right, now let's talk about skills and the gigantic passive skill tree that is in Path of Exile. This is a huge flex on Diablo, the way they're doing this. It may look super daunting to you if you never played a Path of Exile game before, or if you're just a new player of these kind of games. But I promise it starts to make sense after you play. Like even just the 8 hours I've played, it's all starting to make a lot more sense to me, and it's really fun to play around with this kind of stuff. And here is the number one reason why I like the way Path of Exile does skills. You don't just simply add skills as you level up, and then you can like just kind of reset them and then do whatever build you want ever again. You actually add skills by playing the game and finding skill gems that allow you to add to your skills based on the level of gem that you find. That is it's such a cool way of implementing skilling up your character. So like, depending on, I guess, the area, I think it's the area that you're in or the level you are, you'll find skill gems equal to like that level that you need to upgrade your current skills. And then you'll be able to go through there and find the skill that you want to upgrade. And then along with that, you also have this gigantic passive tree of skills that you upgrade as you level up. So the passive tree is simply the ones you just get as you level, and then you find the actual skills themselves as you move through the game, kill mobs, and randomly find them. So every single time you find a skill modifier gem, it's like Christmas. You're just like, oh my god, and it really gives you a sense that you earned that skill. And then it makes you actually be a little bit more strategic with each one of your skills, because you're like, hey, I have to actually go out and find this skill point by killing stuff. And it actually makes you think about where you're going to put that skill point a little bit more, because you had to work for it. And it also opens up a wider variety of builds you can make, because you can simply just go out and play the game and find these skill gems, and then go ahead and put a ton of weird skills on your character and play around with stuff. Like with my warrior character that I've been playing, I have a two-handed weapon that I smash things with, but then I also picked up a bow and decided to use that to do some kind of range damage when I need to. Now let's go ahead and talk about my number one thing I wanted to discuss in this video, and something that maybe a lot of you that play these kind of games will disagree with, but that's fine. We're going to talk about it anyway, and that is the difficulty of this game. If I had to pick one thing that sets Path of Exile 2 apart from other, ARPG games, that is the difficulty all around. This game doesn't just punish mistakes that you make, it teaches you through that failure. And let me explain. So Boss fights are super intense. You have to pay attention to the mechanics, and they force you to adapt on the fly. You may even have to change your build simply just to beat a certain boss. Every time you die, and you will, trust me, it feels like you're learning something new. And when you finally take down that boss, the feeling is incredible. Way more than just mindlessly cutting and beating through an entire game that doesn't even challenge you. So it's not just satisfaction. You get a little bit of pride out of it as the person playing the game. So you feel like you earned the victory and you earned that loot, which is like the #1 driving force in these games. Like, let's get real. We just want to find those rare items, right? It definitely feels like 10 times more rewarding than anything that I ever found in Diablo 4. Like, hands down. I'll reiterate it again. I saw a lot of people in the chat saying that the game is way too hard. They couldn't beat certain bosses. And then there's other people that come back and say, like, hey man, just play the game more, change your build, try the boss a few more times, learn the mechanics, and you'll get it. You absolutely can. And it's again, just that much more rewarding because you worked for it and you figured it out on your own. And this current boss I'm showing you right now, I died probably like 3 or 4 times trying to beat him, but when I finally did, my hands were sweaty, my freaking fingers were hurting because of my controller from mashing the buttons, but man, it felt amazing. And on that note, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because after 8 hours just about of early access play already, I can confidently say that Path of Exile 2 is probably the ARPG that I've been waiting for and what Diablo 4 should have been. It's brutal, it's beautiful, and it is unbelievably rewarding because it is so damn hard. Coming from the Diablo games, it is clear this game respects its players and it doesn't hand you anything. If you are a Diablo fan, like me, looking for something that is deeper, more challenging, and ultimately more rewarding and not just a face roll every time you play it, Path of Exile 2 isn't just like a sequel to the original. It's probably some kind of masterpiece and might even be a Game of the Year candidate, in my opinion, for this genre. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Hopefully, everything they're promising as far as the next few acts that you're allowed to play after early access, everything holds up. And then hopefully the end game also holds up because I haven't even gotten that far yet. I'm still, I think, in the first act right now. I haven't even gotten to Act 2, and I'm already just this far into it and loving it. So guys, let me know what you guys think about the game and if you're playing it down in the comments below. Also, like this video if you guys love Path of Exile 2 and you want to see more content on it. I'd be happy to do that for you guys. Let me know what you want to see. And as always, have fun gaming, and I'll catch you in the next one.